That day, when stepping out of the movie theatre, I felt as if I had just awakened from a long dream. The world around me suddenly became strange, as if everything could be an illusion. The falling green code did not stop echoing in my head, the whoosh sound of bullet time. The bewildered eyes of Keanu Reeves when Neo asked, "What is the Matrix?" And the deep, authoritative voice of Laurence Fishburne, "You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes." All of it haunted me throughout an entire youth. But later on, the more I rewatched it, the more I discovered strange behind-the-scenes details that I had completely not noticed at first. Did you know that the original idea of the Wachowskis was much darker and more sick, to the point that Warner Bros. Was forced to cut it out? Or the real reason that made Keanu Reeves have to film with a broken neck, enduring pain himself to keep the role? And the scene of Neo naked was in reality more horrifying than anything you ever witnessed on the screen. Today, we will reopen the darkest and most unknown behind-the-scenes doors of The Matrix. 20. The original idea of The Matrix was much darker and more sick. Up to now, for anyone who admires The Matrix, they all believe that the existence of the film is a philosophical masterpiece. But few people know that originally The Matrix had a completely different idea, so dark and sick that it made readers shudder. When I accidentally read a copy of the Wachowskis' first draft, it frightened me because of the gloom inside it. In that original version, The Matrix did not only drain biological energy from the human body like a giant battery, it went further, exploiting the central nervous system, emotions, fear, joy, and even sexual desire. Humans were imprisoned in a half-awake, half-dreaming state, their brains continuously stimulated by artificial electrical impulses to produce maximum data, like an endless mental torture machine. A producer who once participated in reading the early script recalled, "It was no longer science fiction, but a form of horrifying bodily and mental violation." The Wachowskis wanted to keep that idea to emphasize absolute enslavement. You not only lose freedom, but also lose ownership of your own body and soul. Warner Bros. Panicked after reading it. They demanded the removal of the entire emotional and physiological exploitation part because it was too similar to sexual exploitation, neural torture, and even evoked associations with dark medical experiments. "We could not let audiences feel violated right in the theatre," an executive recalled. The Wachowskis were forced to soften it, shifting the focus to philosophy and action, so the film could be released. 19. Keanu Reeves filmed while having a broken neck. As a fan of The Matrix for 20 years, I believe that no one could play Neo more perfectly than Keanu Reeves. From the spectacular bullet time scenes to the Matrix-style martial arts fights, from the initial bewildered gaze to the cold awakening at the end of the film, all of it was impressive and became classic in the action genre. But if you look closely, you will see that for almost the entire film, Keanu Reeves uses his hands. More, his legs are nearly immobile, kicking movements are rare and only appear in the training scene with Morpheus, filmed near the end. It turns out that during filming, Keanu Reeves suffered a serious neck injury and had to undergo surgery. Just a few months before production began, Keanu had a motorcycle accident that severely damaged 2 cervical vertebrae. Doctors clearly warned, no intense movement, no falling, no impact. Otherwise, paralysis is possible. Yet he kept it secret, wearing a neck brace during training and filming. Keanu once recalled, "I didn't want to tell anyone because I was afraid of losing the role." Neo had to be an ordinary person, not a superhero. He still trained in martial arts, 6 to 8 hours a day, performing most action scenes himself without using a stunt double. In the scene where he crashes into a concrete pillar in the subway station, the impact was real painful to the point that he almost fainted. Not acting. The Wachowskis admitted, if Keanu had been injured more seriously, the film would have stopped entirely. That silent sacrifice is what made Neo use his hands more than his legs, creating a distinctive fighting style both powerful and restrained. 18. The naked Neo scene in reality lasted longer than you think. Anyone would be haunted by the detail of Neo naked trembling being pulled out of the pod full of red slime, a scene that made the entire theatre fall silent, leaving only heavy breathing and the sound of flowing water. Back then, I sat in the pitch-dark theatre holding my breath as I watched the skinny body, pale skin tubes being pulled out of flesh, then Neo coughing violently in extreme panic. The scene was brief, only a few seconds, but enough to carve itself deeply into memory. But few people know that the raw footage in reality lasted much longer, nearly 1 minute. Neo trembled violently, coughed uncontrollably, gasped for air, as if about to suffocate, his body convulsing uncontrollably. His eyes were wide open in panic, his mouth agape but making no sound. An editor who once saw the original cut recalled, "It was like a reverse birth or a victim whose body had been violated for many years." Test audiences in 1998 reacted strongly. Many people turned their faces away, some burst into tears, others left the theatre midway. "Too haunting, too real," they said. The Wachowskis initially wanted to keep it intact to emphasise the pain of escaping the Matrix. "We wanted the audience to feel the loss of the body Lana once shared, but Warner Brothers demanded it be shortened, keeping only what was necessary." Keanu recalled, "I was lying in real slime so cold it went numb, the shaking was real, not acting." That longer scene was locked away in storage, only a few people in the crew ever saw it. 17. The cast broke more than 600 bones during training. Few people know that behind the smooth, spectacular action scenes of The Matrix was a chain of serious injuries that made the crew constantly fearful. When rewatching the film, I am still amazed by the realism of the kicks and punches, but few know that they were created from real blood and bones. Training lasted 4 months under the guidance of Yuan Wu-ping, combining wire-few harness work, high jumps, and firing blank rounds close to the body. Safety technology at the time was not yet complete. A deviation of just a few centimetres could result in a broken neck or permanent injury. Carrie-Anne Moss once broke her ankle while practicing the scorpion kick, keeping it secret for fear of being replaced. Hugo Weaving had to undergo hip surgery after an injury. Stunt double. Chad Stahelski broke multiple ribs, dislocated his shoulder and damaged his knee. Keanu Reeves, despite having undergone neck surgery, still trained to the point of exhaustion. A crew member recalled, "There were times when the directors themselves reduced the danger, not because of censorship, but because they were afraid of losing someone. We trained for real because the film had to be real and extra recounted." Although the figure, more than 600 broken bones, may be an exaggeration from the total injuries across the crew, including fractures, bruises, dislocations, the reality is that a series of serious cases occurred. The price of cinematic revolution. Looking back, every impact on screen carried real pain, making The Matrix not just a film, but a testament to the silent sacrifices of the entire crew. 16. The subway station scene was a nightmare for the actors. I have watched the scene in the subway station countless times when Neo and Morpheus face Agent Smith among damp concrete pillars. The screeching of trains passing by thick dust and smoke and bullets flying past. That scene always makes me tense, feeling as if I myself am down there in that dark underground space. But few people know that this scene genuinely terrified many actors, not because of the script, but because of the real setting itself. The crew chose an abandoned subway station in Sydney to film a place horrifyingly damp, stagnant water. Everywhere. Rats running around, mould covering the walls, air so stale that even breathing was difficult. Many crew members suffered from allergic dermatitis and prolonged coughing. Actors had to slide on real dirty water, their clothes soaked, freezing cold. An assistant director recalled, "We had to get additional vaccinations before filming because we were afraid of catching diseases." Laurence Fishburne remembered, That air exhausted everyone. It was like filming in a living tomb. Keanu Reeves once nearly fainted from lack of oxygen during long takes. That harshness spread onto the screen, the sloshing footsteps in dirty water, the heavy breathing, the flickering light. None of it was effects, but reality. 15. The Matrix almost received an NC-17 rating. A producer who once participated in a censorship meeting with the MPAA recalled, "When watching the rough cut, the whole room was dead silent. They looked at each other and then asked, 'Is this an R film or NC-17?' That question arose when the scene showed metal tubes piercing directly into Neo's body. The red slime conduits cold and emotionless violence. All of it made the board worry. This was no longer an action film, but a statement about the loss of bodily control. The core idea, you do not own your own body, was too cruel, easily evoking associations with medical torture and sexual violation." The American Ratings Board, MPAA, clearly warned if kept intact, the film would receive an NC-17 rating, meaning no viewers under 17, almost commercial suicide. The Wachowskis were forced to shorten the pod escape scene, blur biological elements, reduce bodily intrusion details, and emphasize philosophy to cover the cruelty. An editor recalled, "We had to soften it so the film could be widely released but still keep the sense of loss." As a result, The Matrix received an R rating instead of NC-17, but the aftertaste remained. Many audiences at the time when leaving the theatre still felt chills, not because of gun violence, but because of an invisible fear their bodies might no longer belong to them. That detail, even though reduced, remains one of the reasons The Matrix went far beyond the conventional action genre. 14. The lobby shootout used real guns. As someone who has loved guns since childhood, I have almost worn out Western films from Clint Eastwood's lightning-fast gunfights to the urban shootouts of Die Hard. But few films delivered a sense of realism like the lobby shootout in The Matrix. When the guns fired, shell casings flew everywhere. Concrete pillars truly shattered, smoke filled the air. Not fake CGI, but the real weight of metal and gunpowder. And what made that lobby shootout so realistic was the use of real guns with blank rounds, thousands of them, fired continuously in an enclosed space. The crew rented real firearms from specialised armories loaded with blanks that still produced recoil sound and smoke almost identical to live rounds. Concrete pillars were pre-drilled and actually blown apart with controlled explosives, so debris flew everywhere. Extremely dangerous. A behind-the-scenes technician recalled, "We had to calculate every blank round precisely because a slight deviation could hit a real person." Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss handled the guns themselves, learning two-handed shooting to maintain realism, even though the recoil made their hands go numb. The Wachowskis once said, "We wanted the audience to feel the weight of every shot, not effects." The result is that the scene still retains terrifying power, echoing gunfire, thick smoke, the feeling as if you yourself are in the middle of the battle. 13. The Matrix has a green colour. Back then, sitting in the pitch-dark theatre, I still clearly remember the strange off feeling every time the screen shifted to the Matrix world. Everything was covered in a pale green layer, cold, like looking through an old cathode ray computer monitor. That colour was not accidental. It was chosen to evoke an artificial, sickly feeling, making the audience subconsciously uneasy from the very first scenes. Cinematographer Bill Pope once explained, "We used a green tint inspired by the phosphor green of CRT screens from the 80s and 90s, a shade familiar to anyone who used old computers. When characters entered the real world, the colours became warmer, yellow, orange, red. A clear contrast to emphasise the difference between artificiality and reality." The Wachowskis wanted audiences to feel the unnaturalness without needing explanation. The green makes the brain slightly uncomfortable, like looking at living code, a post-production editor recalled. As a result, that green colour became a symbol of the Matrix, even though in later remasters it became somewhat stronger. Watching it again today, every time the screen turns green, I still feel my heart beat faster, as if I myself am being pulled into a world that does not belong to me. 12. Keanu Reeves shared millions of USD with the visual effects team. In an era when Hollywood is often criticised for wage inequality, Keanu Reeves' action after The Matrix still makes many people admire him to this day. He received about 10 million USD for the first film, a high figure but not too unusual for an action star. But when the film achieved enormous success, Keanu discovered that the visual effects VFX team was working to exhaustion, hundreds of hours of overtime, tremendous pressure salaries, and bonuses not matching what they created. Bullet time, the code rain effects that revolutionized cinema. An internal source recounted Keanu asked about things behind the scenes and saw people exhausted without fair sharing. Without hesitation, he voluntarily shared his personal earnings, including back-end profit, with the VFX team and the costume department. The exact amount was not disclosed, but some sources estimate it reached tens of millions of USD. Keanu once said calmly, "Without them, there is no film. They deserve it." That action was not only kindness, but also a quiet recognition for those working behind the screen, something rare in Hollywood. Looking back, it reminds us that The Matrix is not only a masterpiece of directors and actors, but also the effort of an entire army of nameless people. 11. The character Switch was originally transgender between two worlds. My friend and I have always had debates about the character Switch, a minor character who appears briefly but leaves a strong impression. My friend says Switch is just an ordinary member of the Resistance. Why dig so deep? I think differently. There is something deeper behind the name Switch and the way the character appears. It turns out that in the Wachowskis' original script, Switch was designed very boldly, male in the real world, the body lying in the pod, but female in the Matrix, the virtual body being uploaded. The name Switch not only referred to switching between two realities, but also carried the meaning of gender transition, an extremely progressive idea for the 1990s. Warner Brothers read the script and panicked. Too sensitive mainstream audiences will not accept it. They demanded its complete removal, turning Switch into female in both worlds to avoid risk. A producer recalled, "At that time, Hollywood was not ready for transgender themes even as metaphor. As a result, that detail was erased, leaving only a few brief scenes. But when Lana and Lily Wachowski later publicly came out about their gender identity, everything suddenly became clear. Lily once shared, The Matrix is a story about dysphoria, about choosing the red pill to live truthfully as yourself. Switch is now looked back on as a personal whisper from the two directors, a character cut away but still leaving a deep trace in the film's metaphorical layer." 10. Neo constantly asks questions. One of the things that always impresses me when rewatching The Matrix is the way Neo is constructed as a viewer surrogate right from the opening minutes. In the first 45 minutes, Neo has about 80 lines of dialogue, and 44 of them are questions. What is the Matrix? Why do my eyes hurt? What truth? He asks continuously. Naive and confused, exactly like the feeling of any viewer entering the film's world for the first time. Warner Brothers Studio once asked the Wachowskis to keep this structure so audiences would not be confused. A producer recounted, "We were afraid the audience would get lost if Neo did not ask for them. When Neo stops asking questions, that is the moment he begins to awaken, accept the truth, and act." The Wachowskis once shared Neo asks on behalf of everyone because everyone has doubted their reality. That chain of questions pulls viewers into the journey from doubt to enlightenment. Looking back today, every time Neo falls silent and looks straight into the camera, I still feel as if he is asking me directly, "Are you ready?" A small but extremely smart detail that helps the film cross the boundary of entertainment to become a personal, philosophical experience. 9. Drunken boxing martial arts. Every time I watch the scene where Neo is uploaded with a series of martial arts skills in The Matrix, I still smile when I catch a glimpse of drunken boxing, the staggering swaying style made famous through Jackie Chan's films. That was not accidental, but a subtle Easter egg for Asian martial arts fans. Choreographer Yuen Wu-ping, who had worked with Jackie Chan in Drunken Master, included this detail as a tribute. When Neo loads the data, the screen scrolls through names of disciplines karate, judo, kung fu, then suddenly shows Drunken Fist. A martial arts fan at the time recalled, "I recognized it immediately. My heart beat faster because of the feeling of being seen." The Wachowskis wanted to honor Hong Kong martial arts heritage, combining it with future technology to create a unique East-West blend. Even though it appears only briefly that detail enriches the film's cultural layers, reminding that even in a virtual world, ancient skills still have a place. 8. The Green Code. Rain was created in a very strange way. The green code rain constantly falling in The Matrix, the film's most famous symbol, turned out to be made from very ordinary and familiar things. Designer Simon Whiteley, the husband of one of the effects creators, scanned his wife's entire sushi cookbook to source the characters. Latin letters, numbers Japanese katakana, even some Chinese characters. All were reversed and distorted to create the feeling of looking from the other side of the screen. A VFX team member recalled, "We wanted the code to feel real, as if someone was reading a cookbook while coding. Instead of using standard computer fonts, they chose a manual approach so the code rain looked more alive, chaotic and familiar, rather than soulless numbers." The Wachowskis emphasized, "It has to look like everyday code, not distant science fiction." As a result, every time the screen fills with falling characters, audiences subconsciously sense artificiality, as if they themselves are looking at an old computer screen from the 1990s. That small detail turned the code rain from a simple effect into a vivid symbol tied to early internet-era technological memory. 7. The passport expired on 9/11/2001. In Thed's early interrogation scene, when Neo is detained by Agent Smith, the computer displays the passport of Thomas Anderson, and the expiration date is September 11, 2001. When the film was released in 1999, this detail was just a random prop, but after the terrorist attacks of 9/11/2001, it became the source of countless conspiracy theories spreading everywhere. A viewer from that time recalled, "When I watched it again in 2001, I got chills. How could it be such a coincidence? Many believed the Wachowskis had predicted the event, or that the film contained hidden messages. In reality, the date was chosen completely by chance. The props department simply needed a reasonable expiration date in the near future." A set designer said, "We didn't think much about it, we just wanted it to look real." Even so, that eerie coincidence turned a small detail into one of the strangest Easter eggs in cinema history. 6. The original ending. Bleak, hopeless and cruel. When thinking about The Matrix, most of us remember the moment Neo flies into the sky, light-flaring triumphant music. A victorious, hopeful ending. But few people know that the Wachowskis once wrote a completely different ending, bleak, hopeless and cruel. In the original draft, Neo truly dies. Trinity cannot save him. The Matrix wins completely. Humanity remains enslaved forever. Morpheus fails disastrously. Zion is about to be destroyed. There is no the one, no uprising. Only absolute failure, consistent with Jean Baudrillard's philosophy, simulated reality may never be broken. And knowing the truth sometimes only brings useless pain. A producer who attended test screenings recalled, "The audience sat in total silence, then became angry. They felt betrayed, as if the film had just punched them in the face." Many people left the theatre in despair, not because of sadness, but because hope had been taken away, Warner Brothers. Studio firmly refused. The film needs a positive ending so audiences leave satisfied. The Wachowskis were forced to rewrite it. Neo Lives becomes The One Saves the World. That compromise opened the path for the franchise, but also made many fans later regret the original version, a darker ending more honest to existential fear. Looking back, I still ask myself, is knowing the truth without being able to change it really worth it? 5. Neo's awakening scene was filmed last. The creepiness of this scene is something we have all already been impressed by. But few people know that this scene was filmed last after the entire main film had already been completed. The reason was that Keanu Reeves had to lose a significant amount of weight to create a clear contrast between Neo in The Matrix, muscular, healthy, and Neo real, weak, depleted after decades of hibernation. The Wachowskis wanted audiences to feel the harsh contrast from an ordinary hacker to a body destroyed by the system. Keanu followed a strict weight loss regimen in the final weeks, eating an extremely meagre diet to look like someone on the verge of starvation. A crew member recalled Keanu arrived on set gaunt with sunken eyes and pale skin. "We almost did not recognize him. The shoot was long. Keanu had to lie in a cold pod, real slime, a mixture of gelatin and water, trembling from cold and exhaustion. We wanted a stark contrast, like being born a second time in hell," Lana Wachowski once shared. The result was the image of Neo opening his eyes in panic, coughing violently. Not acting, but real exhaustion. Looking back today, that scene still makes us shiver. It is not just an awakening, but also a reminder of the price of escaping illusion. 4. Reusing the Dark City film set. The Matrix was released in 1999, but few people know that part of the gloomy, rain-soaked urban space of the film was borrowed from the set of Dark City 1998, another science fiction film also produced by Warner Brothers. To save enormous costs, the crew decided to reuse buildings, streets and interiors already constructed for Dark City, making only slight adjustments to fit the Matrix style. A production designer recalled, "We went to see the Dark City set after they wrapped and everything was still intact. Dark streets, concrete, high-rise buildings, a sense of confinement. Just add artificial rain and green neon lights, and it fit immediately. Many exterior scenes especially. Zion and the city in the Matrix were based on that foundation." The interesting coincidence is that both films explore themes of simulated reality and mind control. Dark City uses tuning, Matrix uses code. The Wachowskis fully took advantage of this to create a suffocating, gloomy atmosphere without excessive cost. The result was that The Matrix achieved its distinctive gothic cyberpunk look, even though the budget was not overly large compared to the effects. 3. The Wachowskis storyboarded the entire film. One of the secrets that made The Matrix visually unified and perfect was the way the Wachowskis prepared. They drew storyboards for the entire film like a giant comic book. More than 600 pages of storyboard were completed before filming, detailed down to every frame. Every camera angle, lighting, camera movement, actor, positioning, even bullet time effects were meticulously hand-drawn. When presenting to Warner Brothers, the Wachowskis did not only bring the script, but also that thick storyboard book. A producer recalled, "We had never seen anyone do storyboards that detailed. It was like a visual novel helping us clearly imagine what the film would look like." This Bible document convinced the studio to trust the two young directors, even though the initial idea sounded overly abstract. During filming, the storyboard became a guiding compass. The VFX team followed each frame closely to recreate it accurately, Actors knew camera angles in advance to match performances perfectly. Editors cut without deviation. Lana Wachowski once said, "We drew everything, so everything had to match. There was no room for improvisation." The result was that The Matrix had an extremely consistent visual feel, from the cold green tint to the rhythm of action, a rare unity in cinema. 2. Warner Brothers almost cancelled the film midway. In the middle of production, Warner Brothers once almost cancelled The Matrix because the early footage confused them. When watching test shots, unfinished bullet time, overwhelming green tint. Baudrillard philosophy mixed with martial arts. Executives whispered, "What kind of film is this? It's too strange. We don't know if audiences will understand." The budget had exceeded projections and the studio feared this would be an expensive failure. Joel Silver, the veteran producer, had to step in to fiercely defend it. He recalled, "I told them, trust these two brothers. They are creating something that has never existed before." Pressure from the studio forced the Wachowskis to work more meticulously than ever revising the script, increasing action, clarifying philosophical messages to cover the abstraction. A producer remembered, "We almost lost everything, but that pressure is what made the film perfect." The result was that The Matrix not only survived, but became a phenomenon salvaging the Wachowskis' careers. 1. Morpheus wore sunglasses to hide exhaustion. The iconic sunglasses of Morpheus, always worn even in darkness, actually originated from a very ordinary and human situation. Laurence Fishburne, while filming The Matrix, was in a period of severe exhaustion, chronic insomnia, due to a dense schedule combined with the pressure of a key role. His eyes were dark, and red makeup could not cover it. A crew member recalled, "We tried every makeup solution, but the tiredness was still obvious in his eyes." In the end, the Wachowskis decided, just let him wear sunglasses throughout the film. Laurence Fishburne later laughed, "I wore sunglasses because I couldn't sleep, who knew it would become an icon." The sunglasses not only hid exhausted eyes, but also made Morpheus more mysterious and authoritative, like a guide from the shadows. That accidental detail turned a behind-the-scenes problem into a character trait Morpheus always observes, always alert, even when his body is already tired. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.